And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm meteorologist David Kramer with Alaska Weather. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start off with a look at the watches and warnings that we have out for the state. Right now we have a blizzard warning up along the northeast coast that is going to be out for Friday and Saturday. Visibilities could drop down to a quarter mile or less in that blowing snow. We're going to have other areas of blowing snow for some winter weather advisories that we have out elsewhere along the north slope. Those are also in effect on Friday and Saturday, looking at visibilities dropping down to around a half mile. And then advisories for blowing snow that are going to linger through tonight for the interior that are also going to bring those visibilities down to about a half mile in that blowing snow. Looking out at our satellite imagery, we can see some of the cloud cover moving through the area, multiple lows and troughs pushing through that are helping to kick up those winds with that snow coming in to bring in those blowing snow conditions to the area. As we watch this loop again, we'll look at another system moving through the Aleutian Islands area, bringing some widespread rain throughout much of the Bering Sea and Aleutian Islands. As we look at our surface maps here, we can see that rain stretching out for the Pribilof Islands and all throughout the Aleutians, as well as into the Alaska Peninsula area. As we look at over mainland Alaska, we can see those multiple troughs pushing through, one moving through the interior, kicking up some of those stronger winds and those blowing snow conditions. This next system coming in is going to be the one that brings those blowing snow conditions to the northeastern portion of the state. However, for today, it's bringing in those northwest winds along the west coast of the state, which is bringing some elevated surf to areas that we do expect to linger into Saturday. Or into Friday rather. And then down in the southeastern portions of the state, we have some rain for many locations. As we get farther up to the north, some of that's going to be mixed with some snow. The rain is lighter than we had seen the last couple of days, but we are still seeing some rises on the Mendenhall and Taku rivers. No flooding is expected at this time, but check your local forecast, weather.gov, to check out if there's any new products out for the rain and rivers rising up in the area. For tonight, we're going to see some of that continued lighter rainfall for the Panhandle area, again in the northern locations and at higher elevations that could mix with some snow. Out over mainland Alaska, still seeing that snow in the interior for tonight, and then quite a bit of snow as we get up into the Brooks Range along the Arctic coast and down through much of the west coast as well. Still seeing those northwest winds along the northwest coast that's bringing in some of that elevated surf to the area. Out over the northern portion of the Bering Sea, we have high pressure that's starting to build in over the western portions of the state, clearing out some areas of southwest Alaska. Then we have our other low down by the Aleutians, continuing to bring rain throughout the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. As we move into Friday, that low is really starting to weaken, but still enough to bring some rain through the central and eastern Aleutian Islands, starting to drop further south of the Pribilof Islands. Our high pressure is really starting to push in now, clearing out much of the southwest and south central areas of the state, but still some of that snow lingering for areas farther to the north. As we move into this Friday time frame, we can see the tighter packing of the isobars along the coastline, bringing in some stronger winds that are moving those blowing snow conditions farther out into the northeastern portions of the state. Still some lingering light snow showers for the interior. And then as we drop down into the Panhandle area, drying out in southern locations, but still seeing some rain farther to the north. As we move into Saturday, that's going to shift and we're going to see the rain move to the southern portions while the more northern portions of the Panhandle are drying out from our ridging that's pushing in throughout much of southern Alaska, nosing in over the Panhandle as well, drying out some of those locations. Still some lighter snow showers lingering in the interior here on Saturday, but the heaviest snow is going to be up along the Arctic coastline where we're going to see some of those stronger winds where we have those blizzard conditions out for the very northeastern portions of the state, including Barter Island. Along the west coast, we're going to see some snow continuing down into the Norton Sound area, but drying out for southwest Alaska, and just some lighter rain showers continuing for the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutian Islands. Of note, we have the next big system coming in, bringing in some rain and winds to the western Aleutian Islands here on Saturday. Expect that to continue to push east through the weekend. For our low temperatures Friday morning out over south central Alaska, we're going to see areas in the mid-20s for most locations, in the teens as we get to the more interior spots, a little bit colder up there. And then down in the Panhandle, we are going to see temperatures dropping into the 40s for southern locations, a little bit cooler as we get farther to the north, near 40 there, and 35 for Yakutat. Friday afternoon high is going to get up into the 50s for southern locations, right around 50 as we get farther to the north. And then out over south central Alaska, getting up into the 30s for much of the Cook Inlet area, 40s near the coast, and then only into the 20s if you're in the Copper River Basin. Saturday morning lows going to drop down below 0 for the Copper River Basin, Glen Allen at -2. In the 20s for much of the rest of south central Alaska, a little bit warmer for Kodiak at 33 degrees. And then dropping down into the 40s in southern Panhandle, into the 30s as we get farther to the north. Saturday afternoon high is going to get up into the 50s in the very south of the Panhandle, into the 40s for other locations with 44 at Yakutat. Getting up into the 30s for much of south central Alaska, still colder as we get into the Copper River Basin, only 22 degrees expected high on Saturday for Glen Allen. As we move up north along the west coast, in the 20s for many locations. Nome staying a little bit colder there Friday morning at 15 degrees, around 20 degrees for a lot of the western locations of the Arctic coast, but in the teens as we get out farther to the east. Single digits through the Brooks Range, and in the teens for much of the interior portions of the state, with some pockets getting down into the single digits. Friday afternoon high is going to get up into the 20s throughout the interior, teens through the Brooks Range, and into the 20s for the Arctic coast as well. As we look at the west coast of the state, we are going to have temperatures in the mid-20s to up around 30 degrees, Gamble up to 32 degrees Friday afternoon. And for Saturday morning, dropping down near 20 to the lower 20s for much of the west coast, near 20 degrees for much of the Arctic coast. Colder in the Brooks Range, dropping down into the single digits, if not all the way down below 0. And then single digits to the teens for the interior, colder as we get farther off to the east. Saturday afternoon, highs getting up into the lower 20s for our eastern locations of the interior, mid to upper 20s as we get farther to the west. Some single digits still lingering in those afternoon highs for the Brooks Range, but getting into the 20s all along the north slope. Down the west coast of the state, a little bit warmer. There we are going to see temperatures getting above freezing into the mid-30s there. And then as we drop down into the southwest portions of the state, looking at the Aleutian Islands, we're going to go down Friday morning into the lower 40s, 37 degrees for St. Paul. Down in southwest Alaska, interior locations into the teens, but staying in the 20s for those lows along the coast. Friday afternoon highs for southwest Alaska, right around 30 degrees for the YK Delta area, but getting up well above freezing there into the upper 30s for areas around Bristol Bay, up around 50 degrees for the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutian Islands, and staying in those upper 40s as we move out towards the western Aleutian Islands as well, 42 for the Pribilofs. Saturday morning lows going to drop down to 34 for St. Paul and down into the mid to lower 40s as we get into the Aleutian Islands. Much colder for southwest Alaska, near 20 along the coast and into the teens as we get to interior locations. Bethel down to 17 degrees. Saturday afternoon highs getting up into the 20s in interior locations, near freezing as we get by the coast, and well into the 40s as we get along the Alaska Peninsula and into the Aleutian Islands, with Shimmy getting up to as high as 49 degrees, 42 for St. Paul. Looking at our 6 to 10 day climate outlook, much of mainland Alaska is going to have temperatures expecting to be above normal, with the highest percentage chance to be above normal up in the northern portions of the state. But the Panhandle is going to be a little bit colder, expecting to see chances below normal in that 6 to 10 day outlook for southeast Alaska. For the 6 to 10 day outlook for precipitation in the state, looking at well above normal chances to be drier for southeast Alaska, as well as much of the southern portions of the mainland, and then chances to be above normal for precipitation along the northwest coastline. I'm David Kramer. Thanks for watching.